Welcome to UpYourStack Podcast. I'm your host, Noah Berk. I'm also the co-founder of OBO, an elite HubSpot solutions partner. Every week, we feature some of our favorite HubSpot app developers who've either built their applications on HubSpot or have integrated with HubSpot to help you get the most out of your HubSpot tech stack. And today, we have an awesome guest, Kyle, with Proposify. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Noah, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, man. It's great to have you here. And, let's just get right into it. What does Proposify do?
So Proposify is proposal software. If people write business proposals, we're really made especially for teams. So, from mid-market companies to small businesses. But really, it's a lot of times teams need to put out these proposals. They don't have any standardization of content. Reps are kind of, flying by the seat of their pants and copying and pasting from old documents. So a lot of times this creates bottlenecks for businesses where proposals aren't getting out. They have no visibility into what's actually getting in prospects' hands, and they have no real control over it. So that's exactly what Proposify does, is helps them get that control and consistency so they don't have to worry about deals going dark.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's, I'll say software out there that does this. So why Proposify, in the first place? And without mentioning names, I'm sure a lot of people are used to using different type of software out there to either create proposals, create contracts, create forms, whatever the case is. So where did you see this opportunity in the marketplace?
It started as far back as 2006, from what I remember. I was a
Wow.
23-year-old designer working in an agency, and they had the junior designer, me, put out proposals to win a big contract. And I was using InDesign at the time. I was getting emailed Word documents from account managers, going and finding old case studies from CDs. This is as far back as we didn't have Dropbox. There was no Dropbox at the
So
time.
using AOL Instant Messenger,
Absolutely. We were
Skype
Skype.
away.
That was what we were
Yes,
instant
Skype,
messaging
yeah.
on. Yeah. So, it was at that point, I think Basecamp was fairly new to market and we were starting to use it, some of us, for project management. I just thought there should be Basecamp for proposals because it is a unique use case. It isn't just, you really need like a document editor itself. You want them to look great, but you also need to be able to collaborate and not email back and forth files. That was sort of the genesis of the idea. And I really didn't do anything with it for many years. I started an agency. We were called Headspace, and we were very small, 10 person agency, give or take. But over the years, we started to develop different product ideas. It was like 2009 to 2012. We were getting into SaaS and trying out some different ideas. And I just sort of dusted off the old proposal app idea. We heard about this local pitch competition, or it was called Demo Camp, where you could stand up and present an app to an audience at the local university. And so that's where we basically cobbled together this prototype with duct tape and bubble gum, barely functioning. But that was where I first sort of got it out there. And I found that people were coming up to me after the pitches, and they were saying, wow, I write proposals. That is a huge problem. I would pay for something that made that easier. So that was really the confidence to be able to continue on with it and sort of grind through those early startup days where you're just trying to get from 0 to 1.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about those early startup days. So how, in this marketplace, how did you gain traction?
So it was about 2013 when we first launched the initial app. And there wasn't really a lot at the time that was doing specifically proposal software. There was a couple. Most people were just using Word, InDesign, Google Slides,
Sure.
that kind of thing, PowerPoint. Funny enough, today, most people are still using those types of tools. But I think what helped us get off the ground was we were able to bootstrap it through our agency. So we had some time to be able to tinker with it and get it in front of people. We didn't raise money right away. But, when we put it out there initially, people were confused. They were like, why would I use this crappier version of like Photoshop, essentially is what it was. But they didn't really see that it wasn't really about the design editor. Yes, the proposal needs to look great, but it was really about the workflow and improvements in the efficiency of it. So it really took us time to find product market fit. And we were just barely trying to stay afloat, keep our agency running while I was doing this 50% of the time. And we were able, luckily, to find a grant program that was able to help cover some of the costs of an in-house developer
Sure.
to be able to focus on it. So finally, around 2014 was when we raised a seed round of funding, sold off our agency, and we were able to just go full-time into it. And then later that year, we started to really find product market fit and to start to scale and get traction.
So how hard was it to run two things at once during those early years?
Insanely hard. And I don't know if I would have the same risk tolerance today that I had back then. We were just trying to, we were barely making enough to pay our staff, pay ourselves, keep
Yeah.
our mortgage paid and all that kind of stuff. So it was very hairy. And there was just no guarantee of Proposify succeeding either because we had essentially no revenue. So it really required a leap of faith to just keep going with it, even through the uncertainty of just not knowing, is this ever going to work?
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of entrepreneurs in general. Will it work? And luckily for you, you had your agency to keep the lights on. A lot of other people maybe didn't have it. It's interesting. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. I say, don't poo-poo the service business. That can afford you the time to really figure out product market fit if you are trying to build a software or a SaaS business. And you kind of followed that to a T.
Or even a full-time job, right? I think the Zapier
Yeah.
guys, if I remember their story, they were three guys who were working at other places and doing it as sort of like a weekend project, an evening project. So any way
Yeah.
that you can just be able to, I mean, time is really what you need. And that's why startups die, is because they run out of money and they run out of
Correct.
time. So anything that you
Yeah.
can do, run a service business, do consulting work on the side, whatever it happens to be to keep the lights on, that's really what it takes. There's very few startups that are able to just start making money on day one. It requires, in our case, it was 17 months from when we first launched the MVP
Wow.
to when we were really at product market fit and starting to like double revenue every month.
So talk to me about that product market fit. Who are your customers and where did that traction really start expanding in that? Where you go from 17 months later, obviously overnight success. I'm sure, Kyle, based upon what you shared from the beginning. But where did that traction really come from ultimately in the end? Like, how did you start really getting in getting those customers?
Well, it was a lesson that I learned from running an agency that I was able to take and apply to Proposify, which was, I
Yeah.
think, the reason our agency never really took off. One of the reasons, other than the fact I didn't know how to run a business and it was my first time, was the fact that we didn't really have any niche. Like we weren't specific on one industry or, you know, like no company outside of where we live, which is a small city in Canada, would hire us unless we had a pre-existing relationship because we weren't specialists in anything. And
Mm,
so I always kind of knew that and regretted not niching down when I ran an agency. And so I wanted to not make that mistake again with Proposify. And so from day one, we were like, small digital agencies, that's what we're made for. That's the market I know. I've been in that world. I don't know what governments do or what huge organizations do. I just know what small digital agencies do. And so I think that was a big reason behind our early success, was that I was able to speak the language of small digital agency owners, build content for them, build proposal templates for them, and just know exactly, and sponsor their events and know where they go and what they read online. So that specialty really helped us scale in the early years. And of course, we've sort of broadened and diversified over time.
as listeners have probably heard me say before, riches in the niches. I know that's the most common phrase ever. I obviously didn't come up with it, but I think that's great advice for any entrepreneur. And it's a common theme for most of the app companies I've talked to is they really focused on a particular niche to start off with. Now, granted, that can expand over time, but figure out what your market is. And that's as important for a software company as it is for an agency to be able to do. One of the things you'd mentioned earlier is slides or PowerPoint presentations. And you had alluded to that, maybe that's really where you're overcoming complacency that people already do a good job putting together proposals. Talk to me more about how your product really differs from what people may be doing on a day-to-day basis now and how they would benefit from this.
So if people use Google Slides or PowerPoint for proposals and it works for them, no problem, right? If it's not broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, the reason why companies will typically come to Proposify for help is because they say, okay, we've got a Google Slide template or a Word doc template or something similar. And as their team is growing, as they're adding more salespeople to their team, they're finding that people aren't using the right things. They're
Yes.
not, it's not really modular. Like you have to know which slides to copy and paste out of and which text to copy and paste. And maybe your pricing is in a spreadsheet, so you've got to paste that into the document. So there's a lot of manual entry, a lot of cut and paste that's making these things very not only time consuming. Sometimes people are saying like it's taking us weeks to get out a proposal. And by then maybe the prospect's starting to lose interest or look elsewhere. So there's the speed aspect of it, but then there's also the professionalism of it. So they'll say like, we have a great template, but by the time the reps sort of do their copy and paste and don't know how to format properly, it kind of looks like a dog's breakfast. And the marketing team is embarrassed by what's going out because it's using the wrong branding and the wrong content and the wrong everything. So really it is the control aspect. Maybe the sales leader also has a discounting policy, but reps are sort of bypassing it and just throwing in discounts or changing terms without really any approval. So that's why we really position more so on the control and consistency more than anything else. We don't position as much on the design aspect of it because you can get a great looking proposal in PowerPoint, slides, InDesign,
Sure.
but it's hard to do both. And that's what we do really well.
Well, I know from experience that it's always a challenge because you have this master slide deck with hundreds of slides. It's up to the rep to pick which ones go in. And you're like, well, hold on a second. We don't want to use that, particular image over here. Why are we still using that image? Well, this color has to match here. And, proposals are a living, breathing item. I mean, even in our own company, we don't necessarily stay static. The same type of proposal and presentation we would share with a client has morphed over the years. And I say it's not continuing to morph because business needs change and who we're selling to evolves and what they're looking for is different. And so what I'm really hearing is this is a great mechanism to not only save a lot of time for clients, for who's putting out the proposals, but enabling them to have consistency across what that product looks like, what they're actually delivering to the clients. If someone's going to switch to Proposify and say, or maybe just start adopting it, you mentioned earlier, they're adopting it for the area of consistency of generating these proposals, but what else are they seeing? What are some of the other benefits they're getting from this?
So visibility is a big piece, right? If you have ever sent a proposal in a PDF, you know that you attach it to your email, you send it out the door, and then maybe you don't hear back from the client.
Yeah.
They don't, they ghost you. Being able to sort of see, not only did they open it, but did they actually read it? Like which sections did they go to? Did they spend 6 minutes on the terms and conditions page? Did they go straight to the pricing only and then not look at anything else? So it's that visibility, those analytics and metrics that I think our customers like the most. They don't often come to us for that, but they say that's really the sticky factor. And the thing that keeps them coming back to it is that they just can't do without that. I don't know how we go back to just not knowing, did the client interact with it at all? So I think that's a really big piece of it, as well as just the collaboration, the integration with your CRM. So HubSpot, Salesforce, other CRMs, being able to not have to duplicate effort every time. So as the proposal changes stages, it updates the opportunity stage, the contact data stays in sync. That is a really big piece as well, as the integration and the data flow between platforms.
So how do you differentiate in the marketplace from competitors? We did talk about complacency. People are just using like Google Slides or Microsoft PowerPoint, but how do you differentiate from competitors and what really kind of separates your product? And I don't want people to be confused with CPQ solutions or full contracting solutions. Like maybe you can even talk a little bit about where your product fits into that mix as well.
Yeah, great question. Because there certainly are CPQ solutions out there. Conga's a big player in the enterprise. And of course, HubSpot has a CPQ solution. So I can see ourselves moving into that space eventually. There are some plans to eventually introduce our own CPQ add-on. But for now, Proposify is very much proposal, quotes, and e-signatures. So if you're using it with a sales team or a marketing team, that's really what it's best suited for. There are direct competitors out there. I know PandaDoc, Quiller, Better Proposals are ones that come to mind. I would say where we kind of, we're all very similar, of course, but I'd say where we shine, Proposify does, is if you want your proposal to just look completely custom branded, so have full control to just make it do whatever you want. I would say ours is the best at that. I know PandaDoc is very kind of rigid in what you're able to do. It's more of like for the signature piece, like it's very strong in that area. So I'd say that's probably, and then, there's also HubSpot quotes, right? Which people can use HubSpot quotes for just getting numbers out there. But again, what HubSpot quotes, at least for now, doesn't do is if you want to do more than just show the numbers, you want to tell your full story, you want to include video and interactive elements in your proposal, it's not great for that. It might just be good for getting an estimate out the door.
Yeah. And so kind of going on this particular path, who is a great fit for Proposify? So what type of customer, and then what are the roles inside those customers who say, hey, we need Proposify at this organization? And I think you alluded to agencies earlier, but I'm sure it's grown since then.
Yeah, we still support agencies. We still support small businesses. So if you're an individual or a small team that want to just get something up and running and get started to get those efficiencies and those metrics, we could be great for that. But I would say where we really focus our effort and our positioning and our go-to-market around is a mid-market company. So if you're 10, 20, 30 sales reps or more and growing, that's the best time to adopt Proposify because it lets you get set up with your template, your content library as you're scaling. And what the kinds of industries that we typically are seeing, although there's a very broad, diverse range of
Sure.
businesses, definitely the professional services space. So it could include marketing agencies, but also can include IT and consultancy and accounting is a big vertical for us. We see a lot of landscaping, janitorial, fencing, roofing, engineering, those types of things. So a lot in the kind of construction space and like maintenance and facilities.
I think those are probably, I think they're often overlooked, those industries. High ticket B2C space, because oftentimes, proposals, the first opportunity someone's going to really have to interact with your brand and interact with your company. And it sets a precedent and a tone based upon the level of professionalism that you put out there. At OBO, we really pride ourselves to make sure that we do very good. That first interaction is huge. Tools like Proposify just make our lives easier at that point versus not necessarily leveraging those tools. And then we can have inconsistency in whatever that product's going to look like. It's easy to your point when you have a small team. It's difficult when you have a large team. And I think you really are solving for that large team issue and challenge that companies and organizations have, which is awesome. And you kind of alluded to this earlier, but how do you kind of fit into the HubSpot ecosystem? What gaps are you filling in it right now?
Yeah. So with HubSpot currently, HubSpot CRM in particular, that's really where we fit in. So if you're using, let's say, a document editor like Google Docs or Google Slides to create proposals, oftentimes you want to get data into your proposal and data from your proposal back into the CRM, which those tools don't make it quite as easy to do. So we actually have a HubSpot widget and we embed the editor right within the CRM. So if you want to keep your reps staying within HubSpot and not have to leave and go to some other tool, that's really great for that. You can sync it with your deal. So you can basically say, hey, when I generate a proposal, I want to create a new deal, or I want to link it to an existing deal. And then maybe as your proposal gets sent and viewed and signed, it's updating the stages of the CRM. So, as soon as your proposal gets signed in Proposify, it's going to move that deal to a one state and, that's going to update your records. So it really fits in well with a sales workflow.
Yeah. And the whole reason people get something like HubSpot is to be a force multiplier. They're trying to enable their team to get more done in less time than what they're doing right now. And Proposify, I feel like, really fits that narrative of we're going to be a force multiplier for your sales team. We're going to save them time, less entry work, less work throughout the whole entire sales process, visibility, and just the fact you have that editor capability within HubSpot, because a number of times we hear from clients as a company who implements HubSpot, I want to keep them in HubSpot is almost every call these days. Like, how do we keep them inside one application? Was this an evolution within HubSpot? Like, how did it start your integration into kind of where it is today versus where will it be in the future?
Yeah, we started integrating with CRMs pretty early. I think, though, that Salesforce was a big driver in the earlier days, especially as we try to move up market and bigger companies started looking to adopt us. If it didn't fit really well within the Salesforce ecosystem, it was virtually impossible to get them to buy in. But I think that the Salesforce integration in a lot of ways informed the HubSpot one, because it was around throughout that period, around that time, that HubSpot started to really up their game when it came to CRM. They started as a free CRM. Obviously, they were well known as a marketing platform, but they're now at the point where they're starting to beat the snot out of Salesforce, and lots of companies are moving over to them. So, in a way, we got to thank Salesforce for sort of pushing the market forward and pushing HubSpot forward, even to the point where now internally within Proposify, we are next year moving from Salesforce to HubSpot CRM. And just adopted like the marketing platform, and our new website's built off of it. So HubSpot's strategy is really smart about just that land and expand approach. And I think that our bet is that HubSpot's always going to continue to go really broad, but not super deep and only deep in certain things. And so that's where I think something like Proposify can always fit well within the HubSpot ecosystem, because we're just going to go deeper in our niche than HubSpot likely will.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think it's something that HubSpot definitely puts out there. So looking for companies like yourself and organizations to really kind of own a particular area, to fill in those gaps and provide that next level of capabilities that HubSpot itself may not offer. So what is the future of Proposify? What does the future roadmap look like? And then how is AI going to play a part in it?
Yeah, these things are all very much top of mind for us right now. We're in the process of rolling out a 3.0 version of Proposify. So we just launched Proposify 3 in beta about a month ago at the time of this recording, so midsummer, which is really the platform that everything else is going to be built on top of. We're just about, in fact, by the time this airs, it will have been rolled out, is essentially like an automated workflow builder. So think like Zapier, but built within Proposify, where you can basically say, like, when this thing happens, make this thing happen, make it work with all your third parties, create really true automation within the platform itself. These are all the things that we're going on right now. And I think in the future, where we want to go is our vision is built on 3 core pillars, which is one, we're going to go enterprise. So we're going to continue to move up market until we can serve the largest of businesses. We're going to become a multi-product platform. So you talked about CPQ just a little bit earlier. Yep. We want to build modular add-ons, because not everybody who comes to us necessarily needs a CPQ solution or necessarily a sales enablement or RFP or contract lifecycle management solution. But these fit really well into our ecosystem and they're one-step adjacencies. So it makes a lot of sense for us to expand the platform without making it bloated and doing too much. So just sort of letting people choose what you need to add to the core platform.
Is AI a part of this? I know AI is pretty much everything is AI these days.
Absolutely. So AI is the third pillar, and that may or may not be surprising. I almost hate myself for saying it, but the thing that I keep saying both like to myself and to the staff is, yes, AI is hot and it's exciting, but a year ago or two, so was Web3, so was Metaverse. Right? So I don't see it as much as jumping on bandwagons as much as saying AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And, we can try to be cool and avoid it and get left behind, or we can be a part of it. And it really is one of the biggest revolutions in technology since the iPhone, right? So
agreed.
For us, I see AI for Proposify in sort of 3 key areas. So one is the most obvious one, which is you want to be able to generate content and documents very easily. I see that as sort of the most basic onboarding play, right? Because if people want to get control and consistency of their proposals, you probably don't want AI spitting it out every time. But what you might want is to be able to say, hey, here's what we're doing now. Make it better and make it more branded to us and, just get up and running a lot faster. And I think AI can solve that problem pretty well. But then I see where us going in the future is, if you want to send your proposal internally for approval because you don't want it to go out with errors, well, that's a great job for AI to solve. AI should be able to scan it and go, this doesn't meet your brand standards. This is using outdated content. Do you want me to clean it up for you and fix it before it goes out? But the third one is really interesting, which is, I think it's probably the next level of AI, which is more the predictive AI. So that's where we're going, okay, you've sent this proposal to somebody, they forwarded it to their CFO. Here's how that person is probably going to influence the deal. And here's what other types of companies that use Proposify are doing in this situation to be able to multi-thread or get that deal across the line. So it's really kind of showing you what is likely going to happen with the millions of data points going through our system.
I think those are all fantastic things you guys are working on. I like your philosophy. I like your approach to it. I get asked about AI all the time, and I equate it to no different than a spell check in a word processor. If you're a word processor, you're going to need spell check. If you're a software company, you're going to eventually embed AI into it, not necessarily as a standalone product, but something that assists your customers to do and get more out of your existing solution. So it sounds like exactly kind of what you're working on, and really exciting opportunities around it as well, in terms of making life easier for the sales rep, making life easier for the organization, and goes with your vision of that consistency for the presentation that's going to be sent to that customer, to make life easy. While I have you here, Kyle, any advice you have for entrepreneurs who are thinking about starting our own company. Now, granted, you did give some really good advice earlier. So listeners, if you remember what Kyle said about how he picked something, I won't say niche and put it in your words, but anything else? Yeah, there.
Niche, solve a big problem for sure. Scratch your own itch. I think these, this advice has been given before. I just wrote a post on LinkedIn actually yesterday because we celebrated our 10-year anniversary as a company. We've been around now for 10 years. And so we
Congrats.
shared 10 lessons. And I won't share all of them necessarily here, but I think, ones that come to mind are, I think a lot of times entrepreneurs put pressure on themselves to have this big, massive vision that's going to be $1 billion company from day one. And they try to raise money sometimes from VCs who say, well, what's your big vision? How are you going to be $1 billion company? And it really took me, I think, 10 years to have this vision. I think there's something to be said for find a really painful problem that other people have, solve it really well, and repeat that over and over again until you have a big company that has a lot of revenue, and let the market inform your vision, right? Did Steve Jobs know about the iPhone in 1980? No. But he knew that, hey, I want to build this thing, and time, technology, the market, consumers decide where it goes from there. So don't put too much pressure on yourself, but do just really focus on customer pain, stay close to them, and keep talking to them even after you don't have to. That's probably the last big piece of advice I would give is you have to talk to customers a lot in the early days to just get something good off the ground that they use. But once you start to grow revenue and things become a bit more predictable, there's going to be a tendency to just pull away and say, I want to get more time back. And every time I've done it, it's always bitten me. It's sort of like the entrepreneur version of brushing your teeth or exercising or stretching. There's good reasons not to do it. Like, I don't feel like it. I don't have time, but it's just good for your long-term health.
That is excellent advice. Not just talking to maybe customers who are unhappy, disappointed, but also talking to your best customers, the ones who love you, because they tend to tell you exactly what will help another customer love you as well. So, Kyle, excellent advice. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Noah. Appreciate you having me.
Yep. And listeners, thanks for joining us. That wraps it up. Again, UpYourStack. We talked to some of our favorite application companies, software companies who've either built their apps on HubSpot or integrated with HubSpot. Kyle, if people are interested to learn more about Proposify, one, how do they find out information about you? And how do they find information about Proposify?
So if people want to connect with me, Kyle Racki is the name. I'm probably most active on LinkedIn if people want to connect with me there. And then the company itself is Proposify, Prosos. No, wait, I can't even spell it. Half the people I meet can't even pronounce it. So I'm sure there'll be a link in the show notes.
Tongue twister.
It is a bit of a tongue twister. We wanted to be very clear. We are about proposals. Proposify.com is how people can, sign up for a trial or, request a demo. But actually, if they go to proposify.com/SOP, we just launched this year our latest report where we're sharing all of the data that we've actually used machine learning to crawl through all the data and find interesting insights about what little things can you do that will increase the chances that your proposal will close. We call it the state of proposal. So proposify.com/SOP to get the free report.
Awesome. Thanks again, Kyle. And if you're interested in leveling up your own HubSpot, feel free to reach out to the obogroup.com. Again, a HubSpot Elite Solutions partner. Again, thanks for joining. Hope you had fun. Thanks.